Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, we're discussing what I think is potentially the new golden tier for the game. And what do I mean by golden tier? Well, I mean a tier that is the one you want to drop down to kind of escape all the nonsense happening at higher tier at the moment with the super ships, the quite, I wouldn't say alarming, but quite frequent double submarine games and all the other nonsense that goes on at higher tier like tier 9 and tier 10 that appears to be tier 7 at the moment. Why? We will be discussing that in today's video. Before we get going, if you're looking for a clan, TSIOF, TSOF, the ship is on fire. The channel's clan is recruiting. If you are looking for a clan, we have clans for casual players, semi-competitive, and competitive players. So if you're looking for a clan, you can check out the link to the application in the description down below. Also, I will be streaming right here tonight on the channel and on Twitch around 5 p.m. US Central Times. Make sure to come out for that. So on to tier 7. Why is tier 7, in my opinion, the golden tier right now? Well, if you would have watched last week's tier 9 video when we talked about how that tier is kind of just exceptionally cursed at the moment, after making that video, I then made another video where I was talking about the top 5 guilty pleasure ships. My top 5 guilty pleasure ships were quite a few of them were around tier 6-ish, and one of them was the Graf Spee. And in the Graf Spee match, I also did a video on that as well, looking at the ridiculousness of a triple submarine double CV game at tier 6. Talked about how that's completely ridiculous for that tier to have to deal with, because AA is nowhere near what it needs to be to deal with 2 CVs in that tier, let alone dealing with 3 submarines in that tier as well. So then I got to thinking, well, what's up with the tiers right now? What tier isn't just getting wholesale screwed over at the moment with the way that the game's going, or at least with the direction that the meta seems to be going in? And well, I bounced back and forth between some of the more common tiers, tier 5 to tier 8-ish, and in my experience, tier 7 seemed to give me the most, I wouldn't say ideal gameplay, but definitely the least amount of, like, double sub, double CV. The matches were decenter for the most part by today's standard. The match watching the background was pretty one-sided, but it's a pretty entertaining match from my point of view at least. I got to do some pretty silly things with the Renowned 44 here, which is a very excellent tier 7 ship. And what I found is that playing at tier 7, I didn't really get double up tiered that much. And even when I did get double up tiered, there was maybe like 2 tier 9 ships per side. I think out of the, I think about 10 or so matches bouncing back between the Renown, the Scharnhorst, and I did play the Colorado for some reason. I felt like playing that ship again. In the 10 or so matches that I played, I think I played like 11-ish. I only had 2 when I got like hard double up tiered, meaning that like a majority of the ships on the opposing side were tier 9. Now, what I got the most often were tier 8, 7, and 6 games, meaning that tier 8 was top tier, most of the ships were tier 7, and then like a handful of tier 6 ships were thrown in there. And that was a pretty pleasant experience. As far as like the submarines went, I never had more than 1 or 2 per side, thank God. The max that I had was, again, 2 per side. I didn't get any triple submarine games or anything like that. CV games, when there were CVs, I only had 1 per side for the most part, which is pretty surprising considering tier 6 CVs can see tier 8 games. But when you drop down to tier 6, this madness just ensues where there's double CV and double submarine games seemingly happening fairly often at tier 6. Granted, tier 6 is where, those classes start at. That's where the submarines start at. That's where the CVs start at. So there is a fair few bit of them at tier 6. But you would think that, the way the matchmaker works, there might be more tier 7 ships thrown into that mix, but apparently not, which was really weird. So it had the most enjoyable experience for me, at least given my little play test here. Now, I didn't sit down and do hundreds of battles at tier 5, tier 6, tier 7, tier 8, tier 9, just for the purpose of this video, but just from what I've seen, just kind of dabbling about in the tiers for the last week or so, that does seem to be the most comfortable tier at the moment. It's kind of ironic too, because tier 7 way back, like shoot, 2 or 3 years ago, used to be the place that you would go to kind of have a better chance at being top tier versus tier 6. And then as some things started changing at higher tier, more and more players were playing tier 9, and tier 7 kind of got sucked into the tier 9 games a lot more. But now it seems that we've come full circle, and tier 7 is the comfortable tier now. Now, is it all joy and happiness? No, of course not. You're still going to have a fair amount of submarines in there. You can still get double up tier to tier 9, and that does suck because the tier 9 to tier 7 gap is a pretty big power gap. Granted, there are a fair few tier 7 ships out there that I think handle this quite well. The Round 44 is definitely one. Duke of York's another one. And just speaking, off of battleships, the Colorado, oddly enough, once you get used to the guns, considering you do have 16-inch guns, they can still hang in there pretty well at tier 9. The ship's speed, on the other hand, but I mean, hey, if you get good at sniping, it can do quite well there. Now, when you do a double up tier 2 at tier 7 to tier 9, you are making a fair amount of profit damaging those tier 9 ships, because you get a income boost when you do damage to ships of a higher tier than you. And given the fact that you're doing damage to ships that are 2 tiers higher than you, you're making quite a bit of money. So if you got something like a Duke of York that's great at HE spamming, shoot, just burn down those tier 9 ships, or burn them as much as you can, because you are getting a nice profit from that. And even something like a Scharnhorst too. Scharnhorst is a ship that's aged very well. If you play her like a cruiser, like imagine it's a much bigger, more tanky a gear, and there you go, with slightly less accurate guns, but you can build into the main battery guns on the Scharnhorst, and that'll kind of help you out a bit there when you are having to deal with those tier 9 ships. But yeah, anyway, back to the point before I sidetracked myself there. It does seem to be more comfortable. How long is that going to last? I don't know. And you can still run into hybrid ships and kind of get double CV games or triple CV games through them. Because of course, right now the line just came out. Everyone's grinding up it that wants to get to the Louisiana, which is kind of cracked. Granted, the two that you can see, the Delaware and the Nebraska, aren't quite as scary. From my experience, at least, Louisiana is just kind of dumb with how good it is at the moment. Now, at the same time, too, I'm not selling you to stop what you're doing and go and buy a bunch of tier 7 premiums. Granted, there are quite a few good tier 7 premium boats out there, but just if you're looking for a more reasonable time in the game, you want to break from like the super ships and the higher tier submarines and all that nonsense, tier 7 is looking like the place that you want to go to, at least for the time being. How long will it last? I don't know. I don't think they'll be adding in anything too crazy at tier 7. It seems that tier 8 seems to be the point at which they're going to start adding in more and more of these hybrid ships, which I'm sure it's not going to just stop with the American hybrid line. Of course, as we've seen in the past, they test things, they introduce them kind of slowly, one at a time, and then they kind of just open up the floodgates. Like with the submarines, they spent forever testing the submarines with just 2 lines, and now here we are. What, are we even half a year? I don't think we're even 6 months away from the full release of submarines. No, I think we're maybe, 3, maybe 4, and we already have 3 lines in the game, soon to be 4. Well, 2 lines in full release. The British submarines are in early access. We know the Soviet submarines are coming out of that. Then probably the Japanese submarines are coming out after those 2. So again, the floodgates have kind of opened up for that. But it does seem again that they aren't starting these hybrid lines from anything below tier 8. So there is that for the time being, at least. And given the fact too that you are an odd tier with the tier 7 ships, that might be why you may not see as many submarines. I mean, again, I didn't feel like I was seeing a whole lot less of them. I was just seeing less of like the double submarine games for the most part. So yeah, guys, if you're looking for a break from the madness of higher tier or the meta in general, tier 7 seems to be the place to go for the moment. Again, how long will it last? Who knows? But from my experiences here in the past week or so, it does seem to be the more calming tier at the moment. So let me know if you guys have a similar experience in the comments down below, and let me know what your tier that you drop down to get away from the madness of higher tier is. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Friday. Again, I will be streaming tonight here on the channel and on Twitch at around 5 p.m. U.S. Central Time. We normally stream for about 4 hours, so we'll be ending around 9 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Again, on here on Twitch and on the channel, so make sure to come out for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, wonderful rest of your week and your weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.